So I think that the implications spill over, even though we may not be able to point directly to the cause and effect right there. It still has implications, and I believe it could lead to war. First Evergrande, now Country Gardens. Will China's real estate meltdown cause a war?
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. It's sad to think, but if you're really willing to look, I think sometimes it could absolutely happen.
Okay, well, let's peel it back. What's going on, guys?
So Evergrande, which has been going on since 2021, is one of the largest developers in the entire world. And they basically defaulted in 2021, and it started this economic collapse down in China. And now there's a new company that is massive development that's kind of been having problems too. Company Country Garden.
Are they the ones that are like building these like communities that are like totally empty?
Yes.
Yeah,
they're just like empty,
like
the skyrise
communities.
Tens of thousands of housing
units.
units.
Yeah, there's skyrise apartment buildings.
And like 3 people walking around.
Yeah, they were originally trying to build them for the future, and then it just didn't happen.
The future didn't happen.
Ghost cities.
Which is insane. Like, could you imagine if you were one of the ones cruising around in there?
I watched a documentary on it many years ago, and it was wild. All these massive apartment complexes, massive high-rise, and just nothing.
Right.
Well, and they were supposed to be like totally sufficient, because I think I saw some of the same documentary on them where like they're totally like almost self-sufficient kind of thing, like, you know, their own grocery stores, fast food restaurant, like all of that, like, you know, within that, right, like an entire ecosystem inside of a building.
So like a smart city.
That one I think the neighborhood that had these big mansions.
Yeah.
The exteriors were all beautiful. And then you go inside of them, they're just like
nothing,
they're hollowed out.
And
really?
no roads, no infrastructure. It's just like these mansions, one after the other, and it's insane. And what we know is now there are billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in debt that's been defaulted. And what is going to happen as a result of all of this economic distress?
Well, and I think we need to point out that, you know, Country Garden just, what was it, 2 weeks ago, defaulted on a $200 billion payment.
Now, we were putting that in perspective, and
Is
some of
this
them...
Is this a spinoff of Countrywide? Country Garden?
We're dating ourselves, Jay.
I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of
Oh
money.
my gosh.
But what we're seeing is just an insane amount of money being just squandered all throughout the world.
Well, and I think that, again, not to go like too micro on it, but I think if you look at some of the development costs that they were touting on that, of like what the per unit costs were, I guarantee that the amount of bloat in that, especially because of the technology infrastructure and everything else that was supposed to go on them, I guarantee the unit cost was probably, you know, super high. And so now that they're behind and they're running out of cash and they don't have the money to finish off the builds, presents a massive problem. But again, how do you fix that? Like that's the problem, right? And that's what this, you know, to me is I did, you know, simple looking into it. Evergrande obviously was the first domino, and so now that the dominoes are starting to fall, how do you stop it, right? That's what I think China's trying to figure out, and, you know, all of the other countries that are in there. Not to mention so many mom and pops have invested in these companies.
Mm-hmm.
So who are the real losers?
The mom and pops.
The people.
Yep.
The people? Like who? Like in America? So Americans have invested in Chinese Evergrande?
I haven't heard much of that.
Country
No,
Garden?
no. But I think, well, we look at who's the largest buyer of U.S. bonds, China. And, you know, they're not buying right now. Right. Why? And that's causing a lot of economic distress here in the U.S. So it's all correlated. It all interlocks and works together. It's like a complicated watch, you know, and one dial turns another. And so I think that the implications spill over, even though we may not be able to point directly to the cause and effect right there. It still has implications, and it could. I believe it could lead to war.
Why do we think that?
Well, the mom and pops are really pissed.
Well, I also think that, so to Kayla's point, right, like, and not to go to, I don't want to say conspiracy, but at the end of the day, we've turned into pretty much a one world economy, right? Like, and I think a lot of times, yes, I'm not talking about local commerce, and yes, you can affect your state, you can affect your city, all those types of things. But I'm talking about that true 1%, 5% of money that gets exchanged between the different countries and, et cetera, the trillions of dollars. And when there's a disruption in that, one of the ways that they've solved it, if you look back on history, is absolutely war, because it's caused metal booms, just in general, certain sectors of the industry to boom, and because of the demand of it, and it causes the flow of money and certain things to happen. And even though it comes with a lot of headache and heartache of and lost lives that war brings, but sometimes I think that countries get pissed off at each other in the in economic turmoil, and all of a sudden it's almost like a husband and a wife, right? A marriage is great, everything's fine, all of a sudden for whatever reason finances hit the skids, and now all of a sudden they hate each other.
This is like country marriage.
But we don't want to be married to China, unfortunately, and too bad we kind of sold our souls to that several years ago. Taking bailouts during COVID, right, from China.
I think that you look at what's kind of happening in the world right now, and things are definitely unstable. And we've got the war in Israel and Palestine, and now you have, of course, Ukraine and Russia has been ongoing, and it's really interesting to see what's happening at play. But how does that impact everyday, Americans that are here? Well, if you are considering buying a home right now, you're staring down a almost 8-handle interest rate. And what we know is that's causing a real slowdown in real estate sales. We're predicted to have one of the lowest transaction count years that we've had in decades.
Scary.
Exactly. I mean, home affordability is at an all-time low. And there are just a lot of conditions brewing that I think cause a lot of civil unrest as well among American people.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
It is interesting, and I mean, I know we've talked about this before, and I mean, I'll just say it now because it's real. I mean, all the stuff that I think continues to go on here locally with Trump and all of the differences that are going on there, and if they indict him and certain things there, I could see civil war.
They've already indicted him, right?
Well, excuse me. I meant
a few times, I think,
yeah,
if memory serves me.
If he gets, if he's found guilty and ends up going to jail, and I mean, and I'm only using that as one point of just further driving down the divide in the country of what's going on. That's what
they try to throw him in jail. I think there'll definitely be a civil war.
Yep.
There's a lot of guys out there with, their AK-47s aren't going to let that happen.
Well, and they don't agree with, and I'll keep it super PC here from my end, but they obviously don't agree with what's going on, and I feel like they're ready to cause a real disruption if something like that happens.
We all better say our prayers and send out our good vibes, because things are interesting right now. Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
All of us, we've had a little bit of life, but I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. For me personally, and I do think about my youngest and all the kids, right? For me, ranging from 1-year-old to 18 years old, there's a lot of life to be had, and when you're really staring down the barrel of looking at something different than what we knew, it's scary.
Well, if you are one of the 70% of our listeners that are not subscribed to our channel, I'm going to just invite you to subscribe to the Zoodealio channel right now. It would really help us out. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of October. So if you're listening, please subscribe, like, comment, and ring that notification bell so you get updated of our new episodes.
Yeah. So was it yesterday or the day before the National Association of Realtors buyer commission lawsuit started?
Well, courts aren't open on Sunday, so.
Oh yeah, what is today?
It was yesterday.
Yeah.
It was yesterday.
Yesterday.
In a U.S. District Court out of Kansas City, Missouri, the trial Sitzer Burnett versus NAR started. And we all know how that came to be in November of 2017. Joshua Sitzer listed his home with a Keller Williams agent. And he sold it. And during that process, he had to reduce his sales price by $10,000 in order to make the sale happen. Maybe there was an appraisal gap. Who knows? During that process, he asked his agent, he said, why can't we go back to the buyer's agent and see if they'll reduce their commission? And his agent shared with him that we can't do that. We can't negotiate the buyer broker commission now because that's set with a different contract and it's part of the MLS buyer broker participation rule. So a couple years later, he decides to sue NAR and all of the other corporate defendants. And you want to know the interesting thing? He is no longer a part of the lawsuit.
Whoa.
Yes, Joshua Sitzer and his partner Amy, they withdrew from the lawsuit, so they're no longer a part of it. Which
You know why?
I don't know why. I found that to
Early
be
settlement.
Interesting. However,
That would have been public if they settled. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no settlement. He just withdrew from the suit.
Interesting.
I know one of the other interesting components I heard yesterday is that the trial started and they had such a hard time during jury selection. So many jurors were disqualified because they actually could be part of the class.
Oh, wow.
They had sold a home. Yeah. And
so
so
they would
I
have been biased.
Exactly. So I found that to be really interesting. And yeah, so opening statements begin today. I read through the briefings. It's really interesting. Of course, you have the plaintiffs alleging that there's longstanding conspiracy. And then you have the defendants saying that, no, the system actually helps promote and protect homeownership and it helps buyers. And it's just wild. An analyst came out and said that if the plaintiffs prevail in these lawsuits, that we could lose 1 million realtors.
Wow. Well, how many realtors
That would
are
be
there?
interesting.
1.5.
Yeah.
So that means like 2/3 of the realtors will be gone?
Yes.
Wow. That's cool.
Is it? I don't know if that's cool or not. I,
mean,
don't think that's
it's
cool.
for the ones that are
That work.
They can fight through it.
That are, yeah. I mean, I don't see not being able to sell real estate.
Well,
No.
No.
If you, I mean, I guess if you're only following, you're only working with buyers, then yeah, I guess.
So it was a couple podcasts ago, or maybe it was last podcast, excuse me, where we were talking about that, if this was to really attack the indie, after they take out the big boys and they attack the indies, and then you have attorneys that take over basically real estate practices, real estate representation for the consumer. What would that potentially look like? And I mean, it could shake it up, right? Where all contracts, all negotiations are handled by attorneys. First of all, it would drive the costs up more than likely. But again, to your point, or what you brought up, attorneys are certainly not going to be going and opening lock boxes and those types of things. So now
I don't make the mental leap from an agent to an attorney. I don't know why you do. I don't, because the Constitution, like for instance in Arizona, the Constitution gives real estate agents the right to write contracts on behalf of buyers and sellers, and that wouldn't be stripped. That's not an association given right. That's a state constitution right. So I'm not sure why we would automatically leap to attorneys.
Well, a couple reasons
No, I
why.
just think buyers agents aren't going to be able to get paid. And why do a lot of agents, or why do a lot of people say, hey, I want to go get a real estate license? They get their real estate license so they can go buy their own house and not have to, or get a commission out of it. Or my mom wants to buy a house, so I want to get my license so I can get the commission, right?
I've literally seen that happen.
Yeah.
And they did no other transactions.
No other transactions, but,
Like,
but they
okay.
sold their mom a house, a new build, and they got their 3%.
Yes.
And it
They're out.
maybe it cost them a couple $1,000s to get their license, and they made $15,000, so it's a positive net of
profit.
13,000.
So it's like opportunists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and then maybe my brother will buy one too, so can make 40,000.
That's, I think so many people jump in the game that way.
But if that isn't there, they're not going to go do it, right? But I guess there's a lot of people that say, "Hey, I want to sell my own house too."
Absolutely.
But there's a lot more to it than just.
But a lot of people see that as just putting it on the MLS, right? Which is why you saw so many of those flat fee brokers, kind of explode. And that's been a trend for probably a decade. So, I mean, that kind of solves that problem of it. Now it's syndicating with Zillow, Zillow's a part of, now being an actual brokerage right? They're required to syndicate. But I mean, obviously, you're talking about Realtor.com, also Redfin, right? Those 3 sites. I mean, the amount of traffic that those 3 sites get is north of probably 500 million per visits per a month. So I mean, that's just a guess. But
so what happens if they don't have a local MLS feed of all the listings?
Then they're going to have to figure out the upload process themselves.
But how are they going to get the data? Are they going to go individually to brokers and say, hey, share your listings with us? I mean, there's some real challenges to, we talk about eradicating the MLS, but if you're working with buyers or sellers, there's a benefit to having that centralized hub of data.
We're going to go back to the book.
That's exactly my thought.
Get the book.
Who's going to publish it?
Except it'll be digital this time.
Yeah,
well, there's national MLSs. I know Rob Hahn, he's created an auction and national MLS site. Like, he's very bullish on this happening.
I mean, think about so that analyst that predict, and of course, right, a prediction is just a prediction.
Right.
Did they give somewhat of a timeline? Because obviously, a million agents wouldn't just disappear right away.
Correct.
It'd probably take years.
Right.
Yeah.
It would take a bit.
But if that happened, I mean, having a national MLS would make so much sense at that point.
Absolutely.
I can see 500,000-600,000 drop off if all of a sudden sellers were unable, not like. It was against the law for a seller to pay a commission to the buyer's agent.
Well, the interesting thing is the Merle versus NAR suit, which is the second suit that's set for trial next year, they actually have an injunction against the practice. So if that suit prevails, it would be illegal because there's an actual injunction against the seller paying.
So as a seller, I would not be able to offer a buyer's agent a commission.
Correct.
It would be illegal for me to give them money to sell my house.
Correct.
Yeah, that would be a massive blow to buyers agents across the country.
That's crazy.
Because and a blow to home ownership, because think about all new home buyers that don't have any money. They're trying to do an FHA loan. They don't have an extra 3% to pay an agent. Nope. And guess what's going to happen? They're not going to do it. They're going to go directly to the listing agent.
Or it would put massive pressure on it and maybe turn it to like a flat fee. But I mean, at the same time, you're talking about sacrificing services too. So like if it was $5.99 to write a contract, $5.99 to open doors, right? Like all of these types of things that you could start compartmentalizing it, where it's just now a structured fee setup, right? And to your point, Jay, to like a homeowner that's struggling to get that 3.5%, now they got to come up with a 2-3 extra grand. That may push them out another 3 months, another 6 months. Now that slows the transaction counts. It actually hurts the seller because there's less buyers in the market.
Yep, and it's gonna drive prices down.
Yep.
And who gets the benefit of this commission? I call it artificial inflation of real estate prices, because I think that's baked in. Who gets the benefit of that? The seller?
So maybe really what this is this is a ploy to bring prices down so we can have more affordability, ownership affordability. Because if buyers aren't in the market, sellers aren't selling, prices will come down, more people will be able to afford a home.
I think I could get...
That must be BlackRock's master plan. That's
Yeah.
just they're going to pull it off and gobble up all the houses.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's true, though.
Yeah.
There is some truth to that.
I'm not.
There's 100%
There's a
true
lot
to
of
that.
conspiracies around that. Not of this specifically, what we're talking about, but about BlackRock wanting to
How do you
literally
bring-
buy up like 70% of all
How do you bring
properties.
prices down? You bring prices down by not allowing buyers to buy.
Well, and one of the biggest, like when you look at like again a world economy, one of the biggest separators between America versus all the other countries is that they own their house, right? So like in Turkey and Japan and places like that, where ownership is not as prevalent, they rent, and so now I think to Keith's point, your point, Jay, you can kind of keep the population more enslaved when they're renting versus owning.
Yep.
Just curious, how'd you come up with Turkey?
I know, right?
Honestly, the reason why I remembered that is because I had a developer that did some things for us years ago, and we would talk about prices, and he used to share with me how inflated the rents are.
Gotcha.
I thought homeownership was...
Istanbul. You remember him?
No, not a little bit.
I'm trying to remember his name right now. and it's not coming to
Istanbul?
me. Yeah, Istanbul.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, I mean, Homeownership rates in Japan and Turkey really aren't that low comparatively to the U.S. So Japan in 2021 had a homeownership rate of 55%. Turkey had a homeownership rate of 57.5%. You compare that to our homeownership rate, which I think is around like 63%. It's not that much lower. What the stark difference is, because I read this really fascinating article about Japan and homeownership. And the difference is that homeownership in other countries is way more affordable, but you don't see appreciation like you do in the U.S. And so you can like own a home in Japan and it essentially it's worth like the same thing like for years and years and years and years.
Right. You don't have the wealth build.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have heard that too.
Which is that artificial as well. I mean,
Yeah.
we're like kind of deep in some shrouded territory today.
We're witch brewing right
Yeah,
now.
I know, right?
It is October.
So we gotta get to the deal of the week, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Deal of the week.
The deal of the week. You know, that's always tough to come up with one because there's so many deals and there's so many, they're all unique in their own way. But one that really stuck out to me because of what's being offered in this particular situation, it's actually a property located in Portland, Oregon. Now, of course, sometimes these circumstances aren't always the funnest, but it happened to be a separation situation, and it was an investment property for a husband and wife, and they decided to sell. Now, the unfortunate circumstance of this property, it is
A dump.
It is in such disrepair. It would, if you saw the photos, it would be, it's very unfortunate that somebody was living in the property in the condition that it is. But unfortunately, we all know, being in the industry, it's actually, unfortunately, not that uncommon. Some people living in pretty wild situations. So here's why I chose this deal. Because one, it got them out of their circumstance that they just needed to, whatever that looked like from a personal perspective. Now that's done. They've been able to walk away, and we are now going to come in and improve the property. All new exterior, all new interior. I mean, I'm talking the works.
New roof.
Yeah, everything that you can think of. It's virtually, besides taking it down to the stud, everything's going to be done. And the main reason that's so cool is because now we're taking a property that was literally a POS that nobody had any business living in, and we're going to turn it in and revitalize it. And one, that does help prices increase in the neighborhood. And then it brings a whole new product to the marketplace that buyers truly desire. In order for a buyer to make a decision in this marketplace with these higher interest rates, they are looking for a property that they don't have to go in and dump their own money into. And so when we have the opportunity to not only be a part of situations like this, but then revitalize a home and bring a beautiful product to the marketplace, it's just a win-win for everyone all the way around. So that one was really cool. There was a ton of hurdles that we had to overcome during the process, which is why it stuck out in my mind. And so I'm really excited about that one.
So this is the homeowners, the previous homeowners, they had it as a rental.
Yep.
The renter moved out. We bought it. We're going to improve it, and then we're going to sell it. And then at the end of the day, all the upside is going to go to the previous homeowners, the divorced couple, right?
Yep, that's what I was just. Yeah, I was about
Hopefully
to get to
make
on
the
the
divorce
details.
situation a little bit more amicable.
So they get to flip their own house.
Yep, that's
and not
the other
be involved
aspect
in it.
of it. Exactly.
Instead of like selling it to some other flipper that's going to make six-figure
Make
flip
all the cheddar.
on it. And you see all these shows, six-figure flip. Now the divorcees are going to be able to basically get that profit.
No, 100%. So that was the next thing I was going to dive into real quick, the nitty gritty of the deal. So if I were to put a value of a flipper pricing, we'd probably be talking more along the lines of low 200,000s, maybe high, between 175 to 215, somewhere around that range, depending on, who you attracted. And of course, that's not what it was purchased for. This is one of our cash plus structures. It was purchased in the higher 300s. A portion of that available equity is held back and can be returned to the homeowner upon a successful resale. So not only do they have that aspect of chunk of money involved, right, ready to be returned to them, we fully anticipate this property easily being able to sell anywhere between $415,000 to $445,000. So not only will they get that holdback return to them, what Jay was talking about is they're going to get all those additional proceeds on top of that. So they literally will get another, quote unquote, probably close to 6-figure payout when it's all done, and flip their own house, didn't have to deal with any of the process. And it's just, that's what's the beautiful part about that type of offer structure and the opportunity in this marketplace.
Yep. Beautiful. Love it.
I love hearing these stories.
It's very cool.
great.
Changing lives, really.
For them, it probably is.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure, yeah.
So I guess the moral of talking about the deal of the week is, one, sometimes when you hear these stories, it could help resonate, and you might come across somebody in a similar situation and go, hey, I heard that story. I would love to be able to help someone in that circumstance, regardless of being in that circumstance or any circumstance. It's an opportunity for them to get them out of their situation, get them to their next venture, and allow you as the real estate professional and the buyer to handle all that rigmarole that no seller wants to deal with, and truly be that advisor and help them in a situation and just really streamline that process.
And they don't have to have any money out of their pocket to do this.
Yep.
That's right.
Be a difference maker.
I love it. I love it. Good story. Good deal of the week.
All right, we're going with the market minute here. So existing home sales are coming out on Thursday, and they're forecasting 3.89 million homes being sold this year.
That is so low.
It's
insane.
Just to compare, okay, so in 2022 we had 5 million housing sales transacted, and in 2021 we had 6.12.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're talking about a 33% hit.
I mean, just to give you an idea, 2008, back when the housing meltdown was, the housing crash, we had 4.12 million houses. So
we're gonna go even less than that.
We're gonna be under that 2008 time frame. Well, that's what they're forecasting. We don't know. It comes out on Thursday.
That's actually scary.
See what happens, but they're forecasting 3.89 million for the year.
So we're not even going to break 4 million, essentially.
Not going to break 4 million. Well, I mean, that's what they're forecasting. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a
surge in activity. I doubt it.
I don't know. I mean, it could be less than 3.89 by the time we get to December. Who knows? We'll see.
All right, in Viral Vibes, I want to talk about short-term rentals because I had posted on my Instagram a reel about short-term rentals, and it blew up, hundreds of thousands of views, thousands and thousands of comments, thousands and thousands of shares. So it struck a nerve. And one of the things that I talked about was how the CEO of Airbnb wants you, your short-term rental owner, to lower your rates to be more competitive with hotels. So we're experiencing an oversupply on sites like Airbnb and VRBO, a little bit lower demand, and so what's happening is margins are being compressed and squeezed, and in order to kind of save the ecosystem, the CEO of Airbnb says lower your rates so that people will choose you over a hotel, and he is enacting a pricing tool that's going to give you more data on what hotels are charging in the area. Some of the common complaints that I see on these comments is people do not like the cleaning fees. They hate the cleaning fees. They think they're a ripoff.
Get bloated.
They also don't like the chores that these hosts require you to do, like taking out your trash, stripping your linens, doing your dishes, things of that nature. Also want to talk a little bit about the New York City short-term rental ban. That legislation passed in January. It went into effect on September 5th. And the thing is, the takeaway here is for rentals less than 30 days, you can only have 2 people that are staying in the home, and they have to have full use to all of the property. Another key component of that is hosts must register their home with the local municipalities, and what essentially is causing is a massive decrease in the amount of short-term rentals in New York City. So that's been a lot of buzz. That is the Viral Vibes for this week.
Lower your rates, said the billionaire.
And sounds like it's a good time to take a vacation.
All right, so in advice, what I'm going to hit you with this particular week is actually something that's going to be the best bang for your buck. Bringing back email marketing. One of the biggest components on this and why this is so impactful is actually taking the time to get your list to where they need to be, because when you do that and you can end up in the inbox gold is struck after that. So one of the beautiful things about this is again, if you take the time to ensure that that it's a valid email address and that your content and your headlines are where they need to be, you're going to start seeing open rates north of 20%. And when you can start doing that, depending on the list size that you have, you're going to be able to really start nurturing and pulling through the value proposition. So one of the things why I like this is because, again, you have the ability to generate data and then be able to again, pull in transactions and get these homeowners to raise their hand, get home buyers to raise their hand from a compelling value proposition that you have. Now on this, if this is something that interests you, but you're not exactly sure where to start, well, you might want to check out Zoodealio on this. We have recently released a product called Blast, where it's going to automate and bring out the content and do everything for you. So it's very simple. You upload your list, we take care of the rest. Just check it out.
Yeah, and a pro tip, if you don't have good email addresses, use Facebook.
Shocking.
Private message people. What's your new email address?
Well, and when you plug
What's
in,
your
we'll
address?
teach you strategies
Right.
like Facebook and other ways that you can really cultivate and pull in good email addresses to communicate your value prop.
All right, we're going to give a comment reaction to BushyTop08. Thanks for leaving this comment on our last video. Bushy said, I think some of the commentary from the podcast overestimates the value of buyer agents. Requiring buyers to pay for their own buyer agent will eventually lead to real competition and help drive prices down. Let the free market determine their value. Is there more work involved for a buyer's agent based on the price and level of the home? Is a $500,000 house mean that there's more work than a $300,000 house? It's the same process, same amount of work. Sorry, but buyers agents don't bring the same level of value to buyers, especially given the age of internet and technology. Buyers are finding their own homes online and bringing buyer agents solely because they don't actually understand or know how that agent gets paid and how the process works. All right, Bushy, that is some meaty commentary.
Some bushy commentary.
Thoughts, Keith?
Go ahead, Keith. Kick it.
I think he's right. I think they're the buyers. I'm sorry. I cut him out?
No,
Jay would rap for
I
the
thought
judge.
you said
I got this. I got this.
Go, Jay. I didn't. I don't know why you guys shunned at me for. I don't have anything to say. How about that?
It looked like you did.
No, I think the buyers. Sometimes it's a little bit more work on some deals, right?
Absolutely.
If it's
But
more
depends
on the
expensive.
deal.
But really, no, not necessarily. Sometimes the more expensive ones are the easiest
Yes,
ones.
that's right.
But sometimes the more expensive ones are the harder ones. But and then sometimes the lower expensive ones are the hardest ones. So I think it all kind of evens out,
It does.
But do you want a brand new agent negotiating your $3 million transaction, or do you want someone
Absolutely.
really good at it? So I don't know. We'll see.
I think Bushy makes a lot of intelligent statements, and they've clearly been through a transaction or two. But what I'm going to challenge is they probably haven't been through a waffly transaction, right? When you have something where there's a massive issue that comes back during inspection, there's a massive issue that's going on with title. There's a lien against the property that's throwing the transaction out of whack, and you have no clue on how to solve it. This is where the expertise of a tried, tested, and true real estate agent can really kind of come through and really make the transaction occur more times than not. So those are things that I would challenge, Bushy, for you to look at. You're absolutely right. When the transaction is smooth and easy, it's smooth and easy. But the problem is until it's not, and you never know what that transaction that's going to be waffly hits until it hits.
If you're a really good buyer's agent like I am, you won't know if it gets waffly because I will filter all of that BS from you and make the experience amazing. And so that's the other thing too, is you may not have the full perspective of what went on. So
Totally. Such a good point.
Yep, that's always the approach that I took. If there was drama, only brought it up if it was 100% necessary. I was like, nope, it's all good. Everything's moving forward. Wanted them to have the experience of that. Bringing up every little hurdle that is irrelevant to them or maybe they wouldn't even care about.
And I think I would say that the inexperienced agent would not do that. They would want to share all this the BS because that kind of justifies their worth, right? So like, oh, we got a problem here. Oh, this guy, this
everything's
is
blown out of proportion.
We don't know. The lender is saying this, and we don't know, man. I don't know. I'm working on it,
And that creates buyer uncertainty.
Yep. And then they get weirded out, and they're like, oh my gosh, and they get stressed out, and so I think an agent that doesn't have too much experience is actually sharing all the crap with the consumer, and we don't need that happening.
The Wall Street Journal came out with an article yesterday about the commission lawsuit and how it could upend the way buyers agents are paid, and there were thousands of comments on it. And what I enjoyed most was that most of the comments were things like buyers agents are worth their weight in gold, or a good buyers agent is worth their weight in gold. And so I know that the mass public generally feels that good real estate agents are worth it, or realtors, I should say, are worth it. So Bushy, next time you transact real estate, hit us up. We'll give you a referral of a wonderful, phenomenal agent in your market, and I guarantee you will walk away from that transaction thinking they are so worth it.
Yeah, the value that they bring is exponential.
Thanks for your comment, Bushy. Hey, if you would like to be featured in one of our upcoming podcasts, be sure to comment below, and you might get a reaction. Thanks again for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.